Welcome back to another FPL Trans Tips video ahead of Game Week 11. I'm going to discuss 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Let me know if you disagree with any of the classifications and if there are any other players you want covered in future videos. Our aim is to get this one to over 200 likes and we're going to keep on pushing towards 22,000 subscribers. There's a lot of FPL and UCL fantasy content coming up in the next week. The best wildcard team for Game Week 11 is already out on the channel. There's also going to be the team selection video, the deadline stream on Saturday, and then the wildcard limitless team videos for UCL fantasy, as well as the team selection and deadline stream, of course. So let's get straight into this video talking about the players to buy, hold, sell and skip. I discussed Crystal Palace defenders in my best wildcard team video. Whilst Mark Gay might offer the best value at 4.5 million, Joachim Andersen is still the very best Crystal Palace defender. If funds are no issue, I would buy Joachim Andersen. His ownership is just over 19%. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist. 10 key passes is very impressive for a centre-back. And he's got 54 FPL points, the second highest of any defender so far this season. But most importantly, look at the upcoming fixtures. West Ham away is the most difficult, but Burnley, Everton, Luton and Bournemouth, that could be clean sheets in any single one of those matches. I'm not expecting Crystal Palace to keep 3 or 4 clean sheets over the next 5, but 2 is certainly doable. And Joachim Andersen has the goal and assist for it to also add bonus points on top of it. Even against Tottenham, where Crystal Palace conceded twice, Andersen walked away with a 3-pointer due to his assist. So I think he's a very good option, and even at 5 million he is worth the money. So if you are looking for a mid-price defender with great fixtures, you can't look and get someone much better than Joachim Andersen. With Pedro Neto set to be out for the next couple of weeks, Hwang Hee-chan is a great replacement for him. Now, I will admit, if you are looking at maybe someone in the very long term for the next 10 to 15 game weeks, Gordon would be my favourite at 5.7 million and below. But as a short-term punt, especially over the next 5, I think Hwang Hee-chan could be fantastic, especially in those easier games against Sheffield United, Fulham and Burnley. You could bench him against Arsenal and Tottenham, but why can't he score in those games? I still think he's capable. In terms of the FDR, I have adjusted it based on what's happened this season as well as last season, and Tottenham is now a very difficult fixture, and that's why I have classed it as a 4 on the fixture difficulty rating. He's got 6 goals and 1 assist, 4 big chances and 49 FPL points. His ownership is 2.6%. So if you're looking for a differential, look no further than Hwang Hee-chan. And I have to admit, the underlying numbers aren't particularly great there for the South Korean, but he is clinical. He's in great goal scoring form. He's got a lot of potential and he's only going to improve. With those fixtures coming up, I think he's going to do extremely well. My only concern is that with Pedro Neto injured, Wolves will lose their most creative player, and that could impact Hwang Hee-chan's goal potential, but I still think he'll get in amongst the goals over the next 5 game weeks, especially in the fixtures that I highlighted there. Sheffield United away up next is a great game, and he could make it 2 double-digit returns for the entire season. So I think Hwang Hee-chan is definitely capable of some great things. He's done it in some difficult games as well, such as Aston Villa, where he got a 10-pointer. So I'd highly recommend Hwang Hee-chan if you're looking for a budget midfielder. I've heard some very, very poor stories FPL-wise about people who had Gabriel from the start of the season, then sold him, Gabriel got back into the team, and then bought Gabriel back for Sheffield United, where he was benched in Game Week 10. I do sympathise with you, and it is very unfortunate, but I still think Gabriel is a mainstay in the Arsenal team, and he was only rested because he played a lot for Brazil and Arsenal over the last couple of weeks. So Gabriel should get back into the team for Newcastle, and I think he will play against Burnley. And as I've said in my recent videos, it would not surprise me if it was Saliba who got the rest instead against Burnley, but it all depends on what happens in the Carabao Cup coming up against West Ham United on Wednesday, and also the international stage, which has also played a big part in Gabriel being rested as well. And his ownership is 14.7%. He's got no goals so far this season, but 10 throughout his Premier League career. He's got 2 bonus points, an XG of 0.2, only 3 shots and 25 FPL points. So he hasn't been great. There's a reason why his ownership is so low and why so many people have been burned by Gabriel. So I don't think he's the very best defender option you can get, but I think he will start the vast majority of games for Arsenal. And with some of the fixtures coming up, you should see some clean sheets there. Burnley looks very likely. Luton could be another one. And even in difficult games, Arsenal can grind out a result away from home, win 1-0. And if that's the case, Gabriel could definitely have a shout for being in and amongst the bonus points. But in terms of the best ways of covering Arsenal defensively, you could argue it's David Raya in goal at the same price as Gabriel, or even Saliba at 5.2 million, who gets more bonus points and hasn't been benched so far this season. So for me, Gabriel might not be the best Arsenal defender or way of covering their defence, but he's still a very solid option at 4.8 million. This is a very simple one, but every single week I'm being asked, should I sell James Maddison to Phil Foden or something like that? And look, Foden could be a great option in Game Week 11 against Bournemouth at home. And as a one-week punt, I don't mind it, but I would still recommend keeping Maddison in the long term. Despite some difficult fixtures coming up for Tottenham Hotspur, you would expect a little bit of a drop-off, not only in terms of Maddison's goal output or the FPL points, but also in terms of Spurs maybe dropping the odd point here and there and perhaps going down the table. But either way, Tottenham have looked very impressive so far this season, and for me the key reason why, apart from Postecoglou doing a good job, is James Maddison. He's been one of the signings of the summer. 31 key passes over the last couple of years. You ask any Tottenham fan and they will say they're missing that creative midfielder. They've got that now in James Maddison, who also offers goal output, and he's been very consistent so far this season. No blanks in away games. He's produced his first return in a home match against Fulham just 2 game weeks ago. His ownership is just under 40%, 8.1 million. You can't really ask for much more. For me, he offers better value for money compared to Heung-min Son, but if funds are no issue, you could argue that Heung-min Son is a better keep over the next couple of weeks because he's playing down the middle and he's one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League so far this season. But Maddison's been fantastic, 62 FPL points, and his main concern, and this has been the case when he was at Leicester too, is staying fit. If you can avoid injuries, he is potentially a season keeper, and even against Aston Villa, Man City, Chelsea, no matter what difficult game you can throw at him, I think Maddison can haul in any of those games and be one of the best FPL midfielders. Another very popular question is, what should I do with Destiny Udogie? Now, there were reports that he was already training ahead of that Crystal Palace game on Friday night, but Postecoglou decided not to risk him. So I'm looking at that Chelsea game, and I think Udogie will be available and start from the get-go. Davis didn't play particularly well against Crystal Palace, and Udogie has been integral to Tottenham's resurgence so far this season. He has gone down in price overnight to 4.8 million, and his ownership is 17%. It's probably even lower when this video is published. 0 goals and 2 assists, 4 bonus points and 33 FPL points. Not great numbers, but Udogie has been very impressive in terms of his overall performances. I think in recent weeks he has dropped a little bit, but I think he's going to get back to his best in the coming weeks, despite some tough games coming up. And a real test would be Aston Villa and Man City, where I'd probably bench Destiny Udogie, but over the next 2, I could see 2 clean sheets there for Tottenham, and you could start Udogie in those games, then potentially sell him ahead of game week 12 or 13, depending on your preference there. But with Udogie, what I do is hold him, and unless he's definitively ruled out, I will just keep him for the next couple of weeks, then look to sell to your Joachim Andersens, Gabriel, Tsimikas, all these defenders I've talked about in the last couple of videos. But with Destiny Udogie as well, if he is still a doubt of some sorts, even if Postecoglou is playing mind games with Chelsea, then you could just sell him and get rid of that headache, a bit similar to a few weeks ago with Sven Botman. And I'm not completely against that, but I think Udogie will be available against Chelsea. There's a good chance of a clean sheet in the next 2 fixtures, and you probably have other fires to put out and more priority sell. So I would keep Destiny Udogie if possible. Pedro Neto confirmed on his own Instagram that he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks, so he's going to miss Sheffield United, Tottenham and potentially Fulham as well. We've got an international break very soon, of course. It's typical around this October-November period, so by the time Neto comes back, he's probably going to face Arsenal, one of the toughest fixtures any player can have at this moment in time. Pedro Neto did very well a few years ago against Arsenal, but that was a completely different proposition. Burnley at home is another good fixture for him, and Neto is the top assister in the top 5 leagues with 8 assists, at least FPL assists. I think 1 or 2 of them were, own goals being forced in by Ruben Dias and stuff like that. But Pedro Neto has been very impressive. His ownership is 8.7%. He is still a differential. His price is 5.8 million. He's probably going to go down in the next couple of days. 25 key passes and 52 FPL points. Really good numbers. Pedro Neto's never been the best in terms of goals or assists. I remember starting last season, I think it was, with Pedro Neto, and he was very disappointing. And look, I think he's a quality player, a fantastic dribbler, and he's got definitely an eye for the passes. His creativity is very underrated, but I have to say Pedro Neto, he is a sell because he's going to miss the next couple of weeks. He's got a hamstring problem, and you could sell him to Gordon or Hwang Hee-chan if you're looking for that midfielder at 5.8 million or below. Gordon's my favourite long-term, but if you're looking for a short-term punt, Hwang Hee-chan is certainly one of my favourites, despite the fact that Pedro Neto's absence could impact the South Koreans' chances of scoring. But let me know down in the comment section below, do you still prefer Dingra, Cole Palmer, maybe Douglas Luiz, or another midfielder who is priced around 5.5 million? So that's going to be definitely an interesting topic in terms of budget midfielders, but overall, Pedro Neto is a sell. Estupiñán has fantastic fixtures. His ownership is still 22.7%, so if you still have him, you could make a case for keeping him. But Brighton have kept 0 clean sheets so far this season, and I think the only one they've kept in all competitions was in the Europa League against Ajax, who are bottom of the Dutch league. But he is 5 million. Estupiñán has a lot of attacking potential, 1 goal, 3 assists, 13 key passes, and remember, he's been injured for the last couple of weeks, 25 FPL points. The next 3 fixtures are fantastic, but overall, I'd probably look to sell Estupiñán because I'm looking at Brighton defensively and they just don't offer that security. I don't really see where the clean sheets are going to come from. Maybe Sheffield United is one of them in Game Week 12, but apart from that, I think Brighton will concede against Nottingham Forest and potentially Everton as well. Chelsea and Brentford also, not too confident there of clean sheets. So I would sell Estupiñán and probably avoid all Brighton defenders and focus instead on the midfielders like Matoma. The final sell of this video is Luis Diaz. He's undergoing a very difficult personal situation. Hopefully that's all resolved. But even with that aside, I still think Diaz is a sell. And he had a really good start to the season. He returned in his first 2 games. His underlying numbers are also very impressive. An XG of 2.66, 20 shots overall, 16 in the box, 4 big chances. And look, maybe they're not terrific numbers anyway, but the shot volume is good. He had a very good start, and he was a buy around Game Week 2 or 3 in one of my videos. But that's why sometimes you have to be a bit patient and give these things time when you're kind of analysing players, because on the eye, he looked like the best Liverpool asset, even over Mohamed Salah in terms of value, but things change very quickly. And you look at what Salah's done since then. Darwin Núñez has been very consistent as well when he's gotten the minutes, whilst Luis Diaz has been not that impressive FPL-wise. So I'd look to sell. It is Luton Town away next. If Diaz starts, he can do extremely well. And then you might just look back at this and think, what are you saying? But I still think in the long term, there are better midfielders than Luis Diaz, probably at least 10, to be quite honest with you. So despite Liverpool looking really positive, they're one of the best teams in the league, they've got great fixtures coming up, I'd rather just go for Salah or Darwin Núñez to cover the Liverpool attack. We are now in the skip section. I've got Jamal Lascelles in my own team. I bought him in on the wildcard in Game Week 8. A decent purchase. He's also a differential, but I've never actually played him. I was so close to in Game Week 9 to get that clean sheet, but in the end I didn't. He's got 0 goals, 2 clean sheets, an XG of 0.12 and 14 FPL points. So there's not a lot to discuss in terms of stats really, because he's only played a handful of games. The fixtures in the next 5 aren't particularly great, but Newcastle have great long-term fixtures. But the reason why I would skip Lascelles is because it's Arsenal next, where Lascelles will probably start, but then Botman should be back for Bournemouth, if not Chelsea. And I'm looking at the next couple of games, and really, it's not really worth it. If you're going to play Arsenal and then potentially be benched by Sven Botman, it's just not really a worthwhile transfer to make at this moment in time. If you want a Newcastle defender, Trippier, of course, is the standout, but apart from him, you'd probably look at Dan Burn as the next best, especially in terms of value. So with Lascelles, he is a skip. If you want a defender around this price and below, then Taylor is the one. If somehow Lascelles does get the nod in Game Week 12 against Bournemouth, he's a fantastic pick for that game, and he could do extremely well. But ultimately, Lascelles won't be much more than a 1-week punt, and you're really hoping for Sven Botman not to be available for Game Week 12. The 10th and final player covered in this video is Eddie Nketiah, following his hat-trick against Sheffield United. A very good one at that, not just tap-ins. The first goal, a great touch, fantastic composure, and the finish was solid. The second one, top bins, great finish, and the third one, what a way to secure your hat-trick as well. I have my doubts about Nketiah leading the line for Arsenal in the long term. The reason why I'm talking about skipping him is because it is Newcastle away next, and there are a few games over the last few years where Nketiah has shown he can do it in a big game, scoring a brace against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge a few years ago, also scoring a brace against Man United last season to give Arsenal the win in the dying embers of the match. But apart from that, there are a lot of big games like Tottenham away where Nketiah misses some some gilt-edged chances. Man City at home. You also got many more examples. Newcastle at home when it was 0-0. And Nketiah didn't have great chances, but he had the best ones that Arsenal produced throughout the match. And look, I would love to be proven wrong. I think Nketiah can do well, especially as a one-week punt in fixtures like Burnley at home. And that's where you'd maybe look to buy him in Game Week 12 against Burnley as a one-week punt. But against Newcastle, I'd probably skip him for now. And also, Gabriel Jesus should be back in a few weeks' time, maybe for the Brentford or Wolves games. And Gabriel Jesus makes Arsenal play better. He also produces the best out of Martinelli and Saka. He opens up spaces for them, links up very well, especially with Martinelli. But Nketiah has had an underrated start to this season. 5 goals, 2 assists. He's winning penalties against Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. An XG of 2.99, so there is an overperformance there in terms of the stats. And 47 FPL points. His ownership is 6.8%. If you are looking for a differential one-week punt, then Nketiah in Game Week 12 against Burnley is a fantastic one, as we just saw against Sheffield United in the week just gone by. But against Newcastle, I will skip Eddie Nketiah. And for me, the best Arsenal asset by far is Saka. So that's it. We've covered 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you disagree with any of my selections? And are there any other players that you want to discuss in the comment section down below? Be sure to let me know and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server and the FPL League. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards new goals such as 22,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links as I just mentioned. There's also one for Draft Hound, which I'd highly recommend you check out. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 11 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.